Nation. And if you need 5 minutes, you've got 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't believe it'll take that long. I think that I would just like to comment on some of the presentations that we've heard, and I think they've picked out some interesting and accurate points. One point I would like to clarify is we've heard discussion about rural electrification associations. They are not the same as a municipality in the sense that they do not have a designated service area as a municipality does, and their systems are fully integrated in a patchwork quilt with that of Fortis or ATCO in the province of Alberta, and it has become increasingly difficult for them to manage that patchwork pattern. You have a contiguous system with a well-defined service area that you can manage much more conveniently and efficiently than an REA can, and so that's why a number of REAs are selling or have been selling over the last few years. They're seeing it as too many demands on their weaker management systems. So that's one statement I'd like to make. When we talk about being Fortis or being the municipality, those are two, and whether or not one or the other is going to invest in a service for a new customer, you have to appreciate you operate under a completely different model than Fortis does. Fortis, as an investor-owned utility, as Mike explained, earns its return on invested cash. So that is a perpetual requirement for them to earn their return. The municipality's return is not set up on what's invested, it's set up on the net cost or net profit from a year of running this asset and investing money in it. Whether you invest for the customer individually up front or make them pay up front, it's just that they are adding to the value of the asset. So you can make that decision by the change of your terms and conditions and your rates if you believe there is some attractiveness for doing that. Other than that, I think we're hearing some very good points made.
Time for a couple of questions. Councillor Creed?
Sure.
Yeah, you just raised a question in my mind, about our service area, and Marion indicated in her presentation that there are a few, discrepancies that exist. If the town of Carson was to expand or annex, an area, what happens then? Do they annex the electrical utility in that line, or what happens?
Well, if that happens, then council has a decision to make as to what they would like to do with the assets that are in that service area. That's the discretion given to you by holding a service area. So if there was a portion line in that service area, you may grant them a franchise fee to operate it for a term and then purchase it. Or you may decide, no, we'll purchase it now and expand into that with our own system. So it would just be a decision for council to make.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you once again, Kevin, for your time that you've dedicated to be with us tonight and for your presentation.
Great, thanks.
And Mr. Pashik.
Well, thanks. I'm just going to correct a couple of comments that came out earlier tonight. And the first one was that the town could test the market price of our offer through public auction. And yes, you could do that. I would suggest, though, that the people you're going to get are not local, that they wouldn't have the same values that Fortis has, and I'm not sure they could bring the same efficiencies because they wouldn't have folks in the same area. There's also a comment around the town holds two assets, the wire asset and the retail asset. There's limited value, if any, in the retail asset. Otherwise, there'd be many more retailers than there already are in Alberta. There are two retail assets in Alberta, and a third left just recently because they couldn't make a go of it. So the retail asset, the only way they make money is by charging you more for the energy than what they've paid for it. And so there's a limited value in that. I just wanted to make a comment on government and smart grid. The meters we installed, and we invested $130 million to get automated meters reads. That investment was based on where the government is going to go. They haven't made any commitment to smart grids, and they've actually stopped using the term smart grid in their conversations. I just wanted to put out one more statement on our offer to put in the town a 4 kV spare transformer. Town's at some risk. That transformer is aging, and it could fail at any time. It just doesn't fail on age. It could fail due to a lightning strike. It could fail because one of the general public hits a pole and knocks a pole over, causing a short circuit inside that transformer. You don't have a spare for it. It's a $100,000 piece of equipment with a build time of 9 to 12 months. You may be able to get one out of the States. You may be able to get one out of our stores if we have one for you. Just know that that's a risk that you're taking. And the last comment I'm going to make is around no growth predicted at Fortis stock. You know, that's not what we hear. That's not what the stock market analysts are saying about us. What we expect is 5% annually, year over year, for the company. What my concern is, there was some confusion that when you called up Fortis Inc., that you were looking at the European insurance company. And certainly that company is struggling and doesn't have future growth predictions. Fortis Inc., on the other hand, has the growth predictions that I'm talking about. The TD analyst that I follow is projecting 12% over the next 12 months and a further 5.5% annually over the next 5 years. So I think there was some confusion between the two Fortis companies. And that's all I want to correct and say. Thank you.
Council, any comments or questions for Mr. Patrick? Bill?
Just commented on the automated meters, basically, and you know, maybe the term, I don't know whether it's smart meter, don't worry about that one, but clearly it would be an advantage for Fortis for meter reading. Is there any advantage for the customers?
The customer gets accurate monthly meter reads. I'm not sure how often you read in the town of Cardston. We were reading 2 times or once every second month in the Fortis service territory, and now we're reading monthly, and it comes in, there's no meter reading errors, so your consumption is correct, your bill is correct.
Okay, thank you very much again, Mike and Dave and Merlin, and ladies and gentlemen. Now, we move to the next agenda item, being there is a piece of correspondence there for your attention, being item number C, discussion next steps. As I indicated earlier, there were some folks that have contacted me and possibly other councillors that summer's not a really good time to make a decision that's this monumental. And some have suggested that with a lot of people away, let's hold one more hearing. If council would like to do that, I wouldn't mind if we, on the Tuesday, that we hold our committee of the whole, to maybe suggest that we have one final open house on the Tuesday of committee of the whole. Now that day would be September the 4th, yes, September the 4th, and I would suggest something in the order, depending on the agenda on that committee of the whole meeting, possibly something from 6 to 8, or 2 hours following that meeting for one final public information session, whatever that session would look like. It could be an opportunity for some other folks to come and present. It could be just a public information hearing, but that's the suggestion that I'd like to make. And to kind of put Mr. Strang concerns at rest, I don't know if Andy's still here, was concerned that we would maybe make a decision tonight I think I speak for council in saying we will not make a decision tonight, but based on what council would like to do, I'm suggesting that we have one final session on September the 4th, right after our Committee of the Whole meeting. Committee of the Whole meeting starts at 4 o'clock. It's a public meeting held on the first Tuesday of every month, with the exception of July, August, and December. And so that's just a suggestion I'm making. Your thoughts and feelings, council?
My position is it wouldn't be a bad thing, since there are many people who cannot be here or have access to Channel 32 or to the newspaper while they're away, to have another open house, and then allow us to make a decision maybe the following week.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, as much information as we can get out, I mean, that's a good thing there. And from some of the applauding and things that I heard tonight there, I hope it doesn't become an us against you issue. I mean, council's trying to gain as much information as possible as well. I mean, all that's been put on the table is an offer. Nobody's agreed to do anything, to sell anything. So we're just looking for information just like everybody else is. And then we'll make a decision based on what we see and what we hear and what we feel. So let's try not to make it become an us against you issue and things like that. And let's just get the information out and make the right choice. So I'm okay with that. So.
Does September the 4th work okay, immediately following that Committee of the Whole? Again, we don't always know what that agenda will look like, but I would think that for about 2 hours immediately following that Committee of the Whole on the 4th of September.
Will we have any new information?
You know, that's an interesting question, Councillor. In all honesty, maybe what we'll be doing is presenting the same information to the folks that haven't been able to be here.
Yeah.
Councillor Court?
We're going around and around on this. I had several meetings already. I think this is a very important issue, and I'm not a huge fan of direct democracy all the time, but I would think a plebiscite on this would be more what I'd like to look at and set a date for it and move ahead.
What are your thoughts, Council?
Okay, when I look at the model in Kelowna that was between the town of Kelowna and Fortis, BC, the model that I have has to do with allowing the public to be totally informed before they are given a chance to voice their opinion. But the way they are asked to voice their opinion is with an altered system of before the plebiscite. In other words, if 10% of the people can vote, send their response, and it is negative, then a plebiscite is called. So that is the way it is done. In other words, it's the people who are given a chance to express the negative opinion that push the plebiscite forward. And so they're given that opportunity to participate in that decision.
But to clarify, Councillor, please, it's important to understand there may be a favorable side. Don't just limit it to a negative side.
Well, I'm just stating what Kelowna has decided as a model. Doesn't mean that that is a model that we want.
So, first of all, Councillor, are you comfortable with having another meeting for those folks who've not been available? I have a record here, and I think my record is accurate. We've held 3 meetings on this: the 26th of June, the 16th of July, and tonight being the 7th of August. And I think we're willing to go one more meeting on this, and it's been suggested we go to plebiscite as well. First of all, Council, are you in support of a meeting? And again, I'm just suggesting the 4th of September for about 2 hours immediately following the Committee of the Whole. The convenience of that is we're already gathered for the meeting, and it makes sense, and that gives us lots of time to advertise the meeting. Let's do this. Let's make a final decision at next week's council meeting. That gives us ample time to advertise that final public meeting on the 6th. Now, on the 4th. Now, there's one problem with that, but we can't always deal with everybody's scheduling conflicts. Typically, the first week or two in back-to-school situations, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are very, very busy with functions in the various wards. Having said that, I just think we need to move ahead and maybe schedule this meeting, but we can do that in a week's time at the council meeting.
I would suggest we move the meeting to the 11th to avoid the school problem.
There's just as many ward meetings on the 11th as there is on the 4th. There are just as many. So, but again, that may be a valid suggestion because we will hold a regular council meeting on the 11th. So if we can move the decision to hold another meeting, 1 week from today is when we would make the decision, and then that gives us ample time to advertise that meeting. And so if council wants to come back in 1 week, prepared to make that decision, that my thoughts would be that we would schedule either the 4th or the 11th. I don't have a preference. Because the 4th is committee of the whole at 4 o'clock. The 11th is the regular council meeting at 5 o'clock.
Why can't we decide now what we're going to do?
Well, let's give ourselves some time to look and see if there's anyone that can't be here. Thoughts, administration?
I was just going to ask the same. Is it appropriate to just make the decision tonight when you've got the audience here to understand when you're going to have the meeting, maybe get the word out? That always helps as well.
Okay. Could I have a motion then that, to hold the follow-up meeting? Pick your date, Councillor Cronin.
I would move that we have that meeting on the 4th of September.
On the 4th of September?
Yeah, and have the open house from 6 to 8.
Okay, discussion on the motion.
I'd suggest after that meeting, we set a plebiscite date, because that's what it's going to come down to.
I'm not, personally, I'm not adverse to direct democracy. However, we've listened tonight to several presentations, and judging from audience response, I'm not hearing much on the pro side. I'm hearing overwhelmingly. So that's why I think that with another meeting, we might hear more on the pro side, and then, you know, you're probably right. We could decide if it's close enough that a plebiscite's needed, we can make a decision at that meeting. But let's have any further discussion on the motion for the 4th of September. Seeing no discussion, I'll call a question. All in favor of a follow-up public meeting on the 4th of September for 2 hours immediately following the Committee of the Whole, which probably will be wrapped up by 6 o'clock. I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So for the sake of everyone, including the media, we will hold a follow-up public meeting regarding the Fortis offer on the 4th of September for roughly 2 hours immediately following Committee of the Whole. So that is where we're at with that. And again, ladies and gentlemen, and we're not done yet. We just have one final item to discuss, that being proposed realignment of the federal election constituency boundary. And we would excuse any of the delegation, but thank you for your presentations. Very well researched, very well presented. And again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.